I get to the 5 McNugget stats you need to know this week, and these 5-pack of stats is brought to us by FanDuel, because even as the weather gets colder, the NFL offers stay red hot on FanDuel. And right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. So if you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than right now to get in on the action. The app is easy to use, and there's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much, much more. So visit FanDuel.com/UCSS to kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. We got 5. This is a quarterback-heavy stat pack. So let's start with this, though, and we're going to start with a little bit of the Browns' defense. The sack numbers have gone down a tiny bit over the last few weeks for the Cleveland Browns, but partly because they played quarterbacks who got the ball out of their hands very, very quickly. Against L.A., no sacks, 2 quarterback pressures. On the season, Stafford gets the ball out of his hands in 2.62 seconds. That's the 8th fastest time in the NFL. Against Jacksonville, Lawrence, he gets the ball out faster. He has the 4th fastest time to throw in the entire league. He got sacked 4 times. They all came when he held the ball for longer than 3 seconds. Now, why is that important? Justin Fields holds the ball longer than any quarterback in football, partly because he's a scrambler. That's partly designed. But his 3.3 time to throw, that's seconds from snap to the release, is the dead last slowest in the NFL. He takes a ton of sacks because of that. And if you go back to 2021, the last time these two teams met, Myles Garrett sacked Justin Fields 4.5 times in arguably his best game of his career. So hold the ball at your own risk, Justin, because you got guys like Myles and Zadarius coming down your throat.
Yeah.
That's a good stat. I like it.
It's a great stat. That was one of those games for Myles Garrett where we were like, oh, my God.
Yeah. Just goes to show how good he can be when there's a quarterback that wants to stand back there and go through all of his reads and holds the ball that long. But I think there's a reason that I don't know if you can find this stat. I'd be curious to see opponents against which team, for all of their opponents combined, are getting rid of the ball quickest. And I would imagine that the Browns would be in the top 5 because they know that Myles Garrett's coming. And so part of Jacksonville's game plan was get the ball out of your hand.
Like they're quicker against the Browns than they are against other opponents.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can find that. You probably can't. But, like, opponents against.
I never count out Mike, Jay. He finds everything.
Man, he digs deep.
All right, well, this next one.
This nickname should be Elias.
I mentioned it to you guys yesterday in the post-show meeting. But the the Bears defense, pre-Montez Sweat and post-Montez Sweat, have been completely different units. And I got the numbers to show you side by side. They traded for Montez Sweat 5 weeks ago. Prior to acquiring Montez Sweat, the Bears had played 8 games. They were 28th in the league in points per game allowed, 27.3. 23rd in yards per game allowed with 341. 10 sacks, that was dead last. They forced 9 turnovers. That was 22nd in football. Since acquiring Montez Sweat, 5 games, they're 9th in points per game allowed. They're 5th in yards per allowed. They're 22nd in sacks. They're 2nd in turnovers. And maybe more importantly than anything for this game, pass yards per game allowed. Before the addition of Montez Sweat, they're allowing 263 pass yards per game, 30th in the NFL. Since getting Montez Sweat, 181 yards per game, 2nd in the NFL. This defense has been a completely different unit since acquiring Montez Sweat. They've also forced 3 turnovers in 3 straight games, the first time they've done that since 2018.
I knew you was coming with it.
That's a good one.
I knew you was. I told you.
I will say this, though. Now, they've played the Lions twice in the last 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And Jared Goff, all of a sudden in the last month, has been turning the ball over. I don't know what's going on with him. And they shut him down and the Lions down this week. Full credit. The last time they played the Lions, even though Goff turned the ball over, the Lions still put up 31 on the Bears. So the other 3 games that this defense has been great against, the Vikings, the Panthers, and the Saints. Those are 3 really bad offenses.
Yeah.
And the Saints did score 24 points in that game anyway.
Good job out of Bull there to counter your stat.
So,
well, I wouldn't say the Browns have a great offense either.
All right, but I think it's better than the Saints, the Panthers, and the
I don't know, is it? I don't know.
Vikings.
And the Vikings.
My God,
Given
Vikings
the
just gave
injuries and where they're at.
Vikings just won a game by scoring 3 points.
Yeah.
Hey, you can only play on your schedule.
No, but of course
Yeah,
you can only
I
play.
think that
but
both-
it
it's
plays a
important
role.
for context.
Yes.
It's context for the Bears being much better. Plus, part of the reason Sweat helped is because Ngakoue was their only good pass rusher. So now they had 2 good, solid pass rushers, and now they're back to 1 again.
Yeah. To me, this is the reverse of their Roquan Smith trade. I never understood that. I couldn't understand why they gave up on Smith. And their defense, pre-trade with Smith, was really, really good, and it fell off the table.
Right.
And conversely, the Ravens' defense was sort of mid.
Yeah.
And when Smith came over, they became another dominant
They've been
defense.
great since then. They still are really good now.
It's almost like they undid the Roquan Smith trade with this.
And they traded a second-round pick, which is
what
they got back.
Exactly what they got.
Essentially, they traded Roquan Smith for Montez.
It's like almost like the football god said, you screwed that one up, so we're going to give you this
I still
one.
don't like the trade for them because they could have signed him as a free agent in the offseason. I don't know.
Who?
But the Bears.
Well, just goes to show you.
Well, but-
sometimes you get in the market early. So I'm gonna take care of look, we'll take care of that now. We're gonna trade for you. We're gonna give you a deal. We don't want to compete with nobody.
Yeah.
We're gonna go get our guy today.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have had to give up a second-round pick to get him. If they were contending, I understood.
There's
but they
no
weren't.
guarantee you're going to get him, though,
Right.
as a free
Yeah,
agent.
that's the.
But the Bears had by far the most cap space.
Sometimes
So
money
yeah,
don't
it's
matter.
not a guarantee, but they paid him such an outrageous amount. They paid him as if he's Myles Garrett.
He did get a
He's
fat
not-
extension.
Got a big one.
A fat extension.
He's a good player. He ain't Myles Garrett.
Sometimes when you're a bad team and you don't have good players, you
gotta
oversign.
overpay.
You gotta overpay.
You got to overpay.
All right, next one. How about blitzers beware? This was kind of interesting. So last week against Jacksonville, Joe Flacco against the blitz, we mentioned this earlier, was phenomenal.
Yeah.
75% completion. He was 9 of 12 for 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, a 156.3 passer rating.
What's
Oh,
perfect?
158.3. So
Oh my
literally
God.
2 points underneath. Well, how about this? Justin Fields against the Lions last week. Also 75%. Threw for less yards, 1 touchdown.
Wow.
The exact same quarterback rating. No turnovers. Now, how does that play into this game? Chicago doesn't blitz a ton. 18th in the NFL. They blitz about 24% of the time, every 1 out of 4 plays. Cleveland a little higher at 13%. We're still not sure if Denzel Ward's a full go yet. They lost Ogba, won't play, so we'll see if Jim Schwartz dials up some more blitz. But against the blitz last week, Flacco and Fields were at their best. If you want to bring pressure, just be prepared
Mike,
to
let me
touch
just
on the
correct.
back end.
You said they're 13%. They're 13th, the Browns.
13th, yeah, with a
Yeah.
27.9%.
What that
don't
tells
think-
me is I don't think we're going to see a lot of blitzes Sunday from either team.
I don't think Jason don't buy it. He gave him
don't
the
you
like.
buy?
He gave him.
I was yawning.
Yeah,
I'm
he was
tired.
like, Jason. I actually don't even buy
You
it.
lost Jason
No,
during that.
no.
I actually don't buy it either. He was like, man, look, that's a 2-week joint right there. Like okay, and a lot of it. Hey, let's be clear. You go back and watch that all 22. A lot of busted coverages in there. So they brought the all-out blitz. The guy slips and falls. Joe finds him. It wasn't like it was like, oh, we're bringing blitzes and he moving in the
But
pocket.
also, and
like
first
Mahomes.
of all, I love Mikey's stat pack. Don't make it sound like I'm over here falling asleep. He does an unbelievable job of this every week. But like you say, also, there's layers to this, right?
Yeah.
Like there's a difference in cover 0 and bringing 1 extra man.
Right.
Yeah, big
So,
difference.
Yeah.
and we saw how a cover 0 can bust easily last week when the Jaguars brought a jailbreak blitz and Flacco picked it apart like that. So there's a difference in bringing 1 extra guy and bringing everybody.
Yeah,
so
True.
it's
That's
just,
a good point.
Yeah, I just think when you say blitz,
Not all blitzes are created equal.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I mean,
Yeah.
okay, just because you send 5, that does technically mean you're bringing the extra rusher.
You're bringing 1 extra
By the
player.
way,
When you bring 7, to
Right.
me, that's a full house blitz.
By the way,
What's your percentage
I
against
should get
that?
I should get the hockey assist for that. I set Jason up for that. You see what happened? I didn't know the 5. I didn't come up with it, but Jason did. I just
Dished it off.
There's also, I like that nugget because they were both 75%, no turnovers in the exact same passer rating in the
Yeah.
same week. So the fact they're playing was more a little
I
bit
wouldn't
of
have
a.
guessed that Fields would have been that good against the blitz at any point.
I wouldn't
so
either.
far.
But
Yeah,
I mean,
that's surprising
But
to
he
me.
is good on his feet, so he is good at evading pressure.
He
so
is,
it
but
does
we've
make
seen
sense.
him a lot as he's leaving the pocket, but not yet committed to crossing the line of scrimmage, throw bad balls.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is another piece of evidence on the pile of his progression has been pretty nice this year.
Well, hold on. You're going to love this next one. You're going to love this next one. This is a Flacco and Justin Fields homage here. We'll start with Flacco. You guys have heard some of these before. I'm just going to reiterate. He's the first Browns quarterback with 3 30-plus yard touchdown passes and a half since Brian Sipe in 1980. He's the first quarterback for the Browns to throw for 300 yards since Jacoby Brissett last year against Buffalo. It's the first 300-yard, 3-touchdown game for the Browns in a win since Baker in 2020. And in 2 career starts with the Browns, he has more 250-yard, 2-touchdown games than any other Browns quarterback in the last 3 seasons. Justin Fields this year has a higher passer rating than Joe Burrow and Trevor Lawrence. He has a better touchdown-interception ratio than Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. He has more rush yards per game this year than Jalen Hurts and Lamar Jackson.
Wow.
And over his last 17 starts, now he's been hurt. Over his last 17 starts, 3,000 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 1,237 rushing yards, and 8 rushing touchdowns.
Those are very impressive.
He's been
How many
better.
fumbles?
A lot.
Well, how many?
I just put a lot. Let me double check.
Many. The touchdown to interception thing with a quarterback like this, and this is what makes he and others in his category so special. I throw the rushing touchdowns on with the passing touchdowns. Those are
Right, but
touchdowns
that's
he's
why you got to
responsible
include the
for.
fumbles too.
You do.
Yeah.
I want to see the fumbles, but
Yeah.
like if it's in 17 games, if it's more than 5 fumbles, I'm that's a problem.
It's 9. He's lost 9.
Okay, yeah, that's not
He's
great.
lost 9, which means he's probably fumbled more than that.
Oh, how many just straight fumbles? 25.
Jeez.
Yeah, but now look, a lot of quarterbacks lose fumbles
clubbed.
on hits, but
Yeah.
they don't
Yeah.
lose the ball.
Not 25.
No, that's still inordinate.
So he's
Well, that
lost
means he's
9.
recovered 16. He's only lost 9 of the
Yeah,
25.
and that's the
Still.
number I'm going to ding him with.
So-
But 25 is inordinately high.
So how many total touchdowns and how many total turnovers, Mike?
So that would be
32?
25 passing and 8 rushing touchdowns.
So 33.
that's 33. And 11 interceptions and 9 lost fumbles,
20.
so 20 turnovers.
I mean,
So
for a
that's still
guy
pretty
who's
good.
yeah, that's not bad. I mean, that's a lot of turnovers, but it's also a lot
It
of
is, and
touchdowns.
what I like about that stat is I don't think you're going to completely eliminate that, but that is fixable. There are things that quarterbacks can do
Yeah.
to try to take care of the football. I'd be interested to know how many of those came when he was in the pocket and didn't see it, blindside,
Yeah.
or how many came when he decided he was going to run the football.
Yeah. By the way, I wouldn't take him over any of the quarterbacks you mentioned in those stat groups.
I would not either. I
Yeah,
just
no,
wanted to-
those
Yeah.
are statistical blips this year for
Yeah.
Allen and Mahomes. I mean, Allen has been turnover prone now 2 years running.
Yeah, but Allen's throwing the ball deep downfield.
Yeah,
to
but
me,
that's gets us into our argument
Yeah.
that we got into earlier this year about why Allen, for me, has fallen out of the top 5. I think the number one thing that we all look at is turnovers, and his number of turnovers the last 2 seasons are just too high. I know he counters that with a
Yeah.
lot of downfield throws and
Right.
touchdowns, but it's a give or a take.
I would say about Allen, and by the way, we all laughed when you said Purdy was better, and while I
Laughed,
think
you ridiculed.
we ridiculed you,
Yeah, wrongly.
Rightfully so.
Well,
No, you backpedal.
every team. Listen,
Bull's going to.
Let me. No, I'm not
Rightly.
going to backpedal, but I'm going to give you
Rightly.
some credit.
It's going to be the MVP.
Every team in the NFL, I think, except for maybe the Niners, would still take Josh Allen over Brock Purdy. However, I thought Brock Purdy was, a decent quarterback, but he's even better than I thought he was.
Yeah.
And he's playing great. Now, he's got by far the best talent around him. It's
No
not
question.
even close.
Yep.
But Josh Allen, and Mike even gave me this stat, a good chunk of his interceptions are like 3rd and long plays where he's firing it down the field where they would punt anyway after that play.
Yeah, but I don't take away, and I'm like, I
I mean,
still
you
pick.
got to factor it in.
But you're right. I mean, a lot of his picks
Yeah.
are, and they're also balls that I've said to, why are you throwing that? I know it's 3rd and long, it's
Yeah.
desperation, but a punt is still better than a 40-yard pick.
But Brett Favre did a lot of that too, and that's he's got that kind of game. And
Good comparison.
And Josh
Gunslinger.
Allen is probably asked to do more than any other quarterback because he's asked to run a lot and he's asked to throw for 5,000 yards too. So.
Yeah.
All
Okay.
right, here's the last one. This
Yep.
one is my favorite, and this one kind of goes back to the backup quarterback. If he's hurt, you may be screwed, you may not. We'll find out. But 9 teams this season have 8 wins or more. Of those 9s, 8 have only used one quarterback.
Wow.
The Cleveland Browns are the only team this season with 8 or more wins that has used multiple. The other teams with 8 or more wins: San Francisco with Purdy, Dallas with Dak, Philadelphia with Hurts, Detroit with Jared Goff, Baltimore with Lamar, Tua in Miami, Mahomes, and Trevor Lawrence. Those teams have only used or started a game with one quarterback. The Cleveland Browns, the
Yeah.
only team in the league
That is a
with
phenomenal
8
stat.
That's a
or
great
more
one.
wins that have 4.
And you-
And all 4 quarterbacks have beat a team that's 500 or better. All 4 of the Browns, they have not beaten scrubs. Think about this. And there's more examples. Deshaun beat more than one team, but Deshaun beat Baltimore. Phillip Walker beat San Francisco. DTR beat Pittsburgh. Flacco beat Jacksonville. All 4 of their quarterbacks this season have beat a team that is above 500.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That's a great stat. I wish I would have had that when I was making my argument for the importance of backup quarterbacks.
Now, there are some, in the end, the other 8 teams all have their starting quarterback, and that's a big part of the reason why they're succeeding.
Exactly. They haven't had to rely on
Right.
garbage backup quarterbacks.
And there are a number of 7-win teams that have done it with backup quarterbacks, Mike, correct?
Well,
a,
the Bengals.
a high number. Yes.
Bengals,
Yeah.
Colts.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at Oakland
Steelers,
stands. The
Pittsburgh.
reason just about every team has used a backup quarterback. The 8 teams that haven't used a backup quarterback are in the top of the.
Are there
top of
any
the
bad
heap.
teams that have not used a backup quarterback?
I can't think of one.
Any bad teams? Let me pull up.
Carolina.
Well, they used Andy
Oh,
Dalton
no.
for one
Andy
game.
Dalton
Yeah,
played
they
one
did
game.
Dalton.
That's right.
If I was Stefanski's agent, I would run right to the front office and be like, I demand, this is what Mikey McNuggets said, I demand a new deal.
Well, the only bad team that hasn't used a backup quarterback, the Commanders, Jacoby Brissett. It's been Sam Howell
and they're
all
the
season.
team in the offseason that went out and spent for a backup quarterback.
Go
I'm
figure.
going to be useless for the next 38 minutes because Garrett Bush just said Stefanski should run to the front office and demand another contract.
Whoa.
Not
Did
only
y'all miss that?
He said he should
Let's
Whoa, I
go.
did
he
miss
should,
G.
he
Bush
should
is
use
coming
McNuggets'
around.
stat.
Hey,
Wow.
man, hey, listen, I ain't that crazy. I mean, like, I negotiate like that's like that. You know, what am I gonna say about that? I can't say nothing.
G. Bush, here's what I love most about you. You've used this line a number of times, and you probably don't even realize it. But you've said something about if you don't take into account new information
Of course.
and change your opinion, you're stupid.
you're
Well, that's the
crazy.
biggest flaw in our society.
It
right now,
is.
that
It
people
is.
don't do that.
But that's a perfect example of it.
I mean, think about, though, if P.J. Walker played against the Niners 100 times, he'd probably lose 99.
I think you're right.
Yes.
I think you're
And
right.
he got the one victory out of 100.
I mean, P.J.
That's crazy.
The Niners right now are clearly the best team in football.
Right?
Right now they are.
And they lost to
they
P.J.
lost to
Walker.
P.J. Walker.
And not only that, you can make the argument that P.J. Walker sent that team into a tailspin because they
right.
lost the next 2 and didn't
Yeah.
look good.
They
You could
didn't.
argue
That's
that he
true.
beat the Colts and P.J. Walker should have beat the Seahawks.
Question, easy answer for me. P.J. Walker gets voted a share of the Super Bowl winnings, right?
Yes, he does.
Oh, yeah.
He's
I
back
mean,
on the team.
100%.
He's on the practice squad.
They
but-
invite.
Yeah,
He's,
but for me, he's like, equal share.
he's getting invited to Christmas party. Definitely company Christmas party,
Good.
and it's on the 19th.
yeah.